What's up, this your boy Dale, and we back with another reaction video, man. Shout out to y'all, man, first and foremost for being here today, man. Y'all already know what it is, man. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, finna be a good one. Shout out to Most Amazing Top 10s, Top 10 Scary Real Stories That Disturb FBI Agents. Finna be a good one, finna be a juicy mess, so sit back, relax, and yeah, let's get it.
Out of all the different types of law enforcement, FBI agents definitely see some of the craziest and traumatic stuff imaginable. But what are some of the most bone-chilling stories ever revealed? We're about to find out. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Kennedy, and today we are counting down some of the most disturbing stories, cases, and mysteries involving the FBI. So with that being said, let's dive right in. Starting us off at number 10 is Dan Cooper. Back in 1971, a man who went by the alias Dan Cooper hijacked a commercial plane, and no one has ever been able to find him since. According to those involved, shortly after takeoff, he handed a note to a flight attendant claiming to have a bomb in his briefcase. He demanded 4 parachutes and $200,000 in $20 bills, which is the equivalent of like $1.2 million nowadays. Otherwise, he was going to kill everyone on the plane. After the flight landed in Seattle, Cooper released the 36 passengers once authorities had provided him with the money and parachutes, but kept both pilots, 1 flight engineer, and flight attendants as hostages on the plane. From there, he forced them to fly to Mexico City, but somewhere over Nevada, Cooper jumped off the plane with the stolen cash. The FBI launched a massive search that is still considered one of the longest and most exhaustive investigations in FBI history.
Now that's fucking crazy. What kind of GTA heist is that? Like, and he could have been pump faking the whole time. And for those that don't know what pump faking is, he could have been faking the line by having a bomb the whole time, and like nobody wanted to rush him. Nobody thought about what. But hey, I guess you really don't want to take that, you know what I'm saying, risk, but
Dan
that's crazy.
Cooper has yet to be found, and I'm sure many agents lost sleep over trying to figure out this case. Moving on to number 9, the West Mesa Bone Collector. Back in 2009, a woman on a leisurely walk with her dog came across something peculiar. A human bone. Little did she know, she'd stumbled upon a major crime scene. Upon her discovery, authorities became immediately involved and discovered that it was a mass grave filled with human remains. But how did they get there? A killer dubbed the West Mesa Bone Collector. Active between 2001 to 2005, the killer was known to target young women, usually Hispanic, and almost always involved in late night services or the trade, but not exclusively, which made it hard to identify why he chose his victims. While we know practically nothing about the killer, we do know that he would take the bodies to the desert to dispose of them. After years of police investigation, the remains of 11 women were found scattered in the deserts of Albuquerque, but the exact way they died is yet to be discovered, as medical examiners and forensic experts have not been able to identify his methods, which is very unusual. Sadly, neither police or FBI have ever been able to track down who was responsible for ending these young women's lives, and I am sure the agents on the case are continually disturbed by the fact that he remains on the loose. Moving on to number 8. Glendon Scott Crawford. In 2012, Glendon Scott Crawford, who was a part of the Pointy Hat white supremacist group, conspired with a guy named Eric Fate to turn an industrial-grade X-ray radiation device into a weapon of mass destruction. The plan was to have a remote-controlled death ray he could use on Muslims in the United States, targeting mosques, community centers, and so on. So Crawford sought assistance from Chris Barker, one of the Imperial Wizards in his hate group. However, what Crawford did not know was that Barker, in an effort to handle his own felony charges, had become an informant for the FBI. This led to another FBI agent coming on the case undercover, and eventually, once there was enough evidence stacked against Crawford's plan to commit acts of he was sentenced to 30 years behind bars. Still, I can only...
How dumb can you fucking be to try to make a Muslim death ray? It's sick in the fucking head.
Imagine how disturbing it must have been for those undercover agents to be in the same room with such a disgusting man. Moving on to number 7.
Like, the amount of hate you gotta have for another person, another culture, another race is like beyond me, bro. To you want to do
Richard
like
Trenton Chase. Mayor of Sacramento, Chase was a truly terrifying killer who took the life of 6 people in just 1 month back in 1977. Before he turned to human victims, Chase would capture animals and bring them back to his apartment to kill and disembowel. From there, he would eat them raw, sometimes mixing them with Coca-Cola in his blender. Then in 1973, Chase was forcibly admitted to an institution after being taken to emergency for trying to inject rabbit's blood into his veins. While in the facility, he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and became known as the Vampire, as he all too often killed animals and drank their blood. But by 1976, he was deemed...
So nobody saw that as a red flag. And they let this motherfucker out of the psych ward, the jail, him killing animals, disemboweling them, mixing it with coke, fusing rabbit blood with his... and let him back out on the streets, bro. This is what
no longer a threat to society, and released back into his mother's custody. Tragically, she began weaning him off his medication, believing he didn't really need it, and once again he slipped into old habits. But this time it wasn't birds and rabbits Chase was harming. He was breaking into homes and killing people before treating them just as he did. Green discovered her subject was a former rap artist named Dennis Cuthbert, who had joined, that group, and over time, Green found ways to correspond with Cuthbert. However, in a shocking turn of events, their relationship turned romantic. Soon, Green made secretive plans to fly out to Syria and meet him, and within hours of her arrival, the two got married. But it didn't take long before
how the hell did the informant start smashing
before she realized what a mess she found herself in, and ended up emailing an acquaintance for help. Within 5 weeks, American authorities caught up to her. Green was arrested and returned to the US, but was released after only 9 months in jail, and the FBI spun her involvement with Cuthbert as that of an unsuspecting linguist duped by a conniving criminal. Still, I can only imagine how disturbing it must have been for everyone involved, knowing that one of their own had double-crossed them and married the literal enemy they were trying to take down. Next up at number 5, Robert Hansen. Known in the media as the Butcher Baker, Hansen was an extremely sick killer who quite literally viewed his victims as prey. In his adolescence, Robert was an awkward and shy boy who had absolutely no luck with girls. These early rejections festered into a deep hatred for women, for which he later would seek revenge.
Like, I don't understand the ideology of a killer, obviously, because I'm not a sociopath or serial killer or whatever, but dude, like, it's not getting girls really that big of a problem to where you just want to go on a murderous rampage. I mean, like, what the fuck, dude? That's crazy, bro. It's really some sick fucking people.
As he got older, he began finding solace in archery and hunting, and would routinely spend his time perfecting his craft alone in the woods. Then in the early 1960s, he began seeking revenge. At first by committing arson on his high school property, but then soon turned to seek revenge on women specifically. By 1971, he was kidnapping and taking advantage of women, but not yet killing. He was charged and sentenced to 5 years for his crimes, but after just 6 months was released on a work program. After his release is where it really got scary. He began kidnapping women and escorts, taking them back to his apartment where he would do awful things to their bodies, before flying them out to secluded areas in the wilderness and telling them he was going to hunt them down and kill them. Tragically, an estimated 21 women lost their lives to this monster, but thankfully he was convicted and sentenced to 406 without.
Nah, bro, that's sick and fucking demented. Like, you pick up random women, bring her back to your place, do whatever to them, abuse them, then to have them on the verge of near death. Put them in your plane, fly them out to an island, and let them off like game. And hunt him down, bro. That's crazy. He should have been death. 400 years, the fuck?
Moving on to number 4.
That's crazy. Why didn't he get the death
also known as the Brooklyn Vampire, Albert Fish was a terrifying killer responsible for the death of 3 people in the mid-1920s, although according to him, it was well over 100. Fish grew up in an unstable home. Both his parents suffered from mental illness, and after his father died, he was sent to live at an orphanage. While there, he was by the other orphans, but he started to develop a rather confusing feeling towards the pain. He began to enjoy it. As Fish got older, he started seeking darker and more twisted things to feel alive, and soon that led to the kidnapping, taking advantage of, killing, and later devouring of minors. Thankfully, the monster was caught in 1935, and shockingly, he wasted no time denying his atrocities. In fact, he almost seemed proud of them. I can't, and frankly won't, go into detail about what he did, but it is some of the most disgusting stuff I've ever read about. And I can only imagine the agents on his case felt the same.
Hurt people, bro. Like, I don't know what to say.
Eventually, Fish was sentenced to death and died by electric chair in 1936. After his death, his lawyer refused to release his final statement, saying, quote, "I will never show it to anyone. It was the most filthy string of obscenities that I have ever read." Next up at number 3, Michael James Pratt. Currently on the FBI's top 10 most wanted, I can only imagine how disturbed the FBI was when they first became aware of this case. Between approximately 2012 to 2019, Michael Pratt, along with a few accomplices, was involved in recruiting underage girls to be a part of an adult film production company that he owned and operated. Pratt lured the girls in under Craigslist ads asking for models, and from there he promised payment in exchange for a clothed modeling.
The devil.
But sadly, this couldn't have been further from what he had planned for the victims. Beyond the obviously morally despicable stuff they were making these girls do, he would also force past victims into providing false assurance to the girls that their films would never end up online. Allegedly, some of the victims were not permitted to leave until the shoot was completed. Others were forced to perform after declining participation, and the crew was also known to commit SA when the girls wouldn't comply. After fleeing the country in 2019, right before his trial for his crimes, he was added to the FBI list, and the search for this creep continues. Moving on to number 2, Mark Putnam. In the mid-1980s, Mark Putnam was a happy husband, father, and successful FBI agent. But after relocating to the Bureau's Pikeville office, things began to change. At this time, Carl Edwards Lockhart, a notorious bank robber, had just been let out of prison, and Putnam believed that he was back to his old ways. So he began gathering informants that could help him take down Lockhart. One of these informants was Susan Smith, addicted divorcee raising a family who needed the cash. But soon, she became more than just Putnam's informant. The two began an affair, and by 1989, Smith was allegedly pregnant. This terrified Putnam. He knew it would not only ruin his marriage, but end his career, and so he demanded a paternity test and explained he and his wife could adopt from her. This, however, led to a violent fight between them that ultimately ended with Putnam strangling Susan to death. Initially, the suspect was Susan's ex-husband, but soon Putnam was interrogated, and after failing a polygraph, he confessed to the whole thing and offered to lead the FBI to where she was. However, there are a few mysteries. Susan Smith's sister claimed that FBI agent Ron Poole, Putnam's superior, not only knew about Smith's alleged pregnancy, but also disclosed to Smith information about Putnam's illicit activities with other informants. And, allegedly, medical examiners claimed that they were unable to find any trace of a fetus during an autopsy on Smith, who should have been 4 months pregnant. I mean, it's just all disturbing top to bottom. And last up in our number 1 spot, the Breonna Dennison case. Breonna Dennison was a college student home for the holidays in Reno, Nevada, when tragically one night she went missing while staying over at a friend's house. In the days following, the Reno Police Department conducted an investigation at her friend's home, where she had last been seen, and concluded she had been abducted after discovering male DNA on a doorknob and her own blood on a pillowcase. At this point, the FBI became involved in the search, and
like, bro, imagine the parents, how the parents feel. You get abducted going to somebody else's house, you feel me? You let me go spend the night thinking it's gonna be some cool shit, and they abducted, and your child's blood is found at the crime scene.
After investigations linked the male DNA to other open cases involving sexually violent crimes, they worried that the missing girl's fate had already been decided. And sadly, nearly a month after she had gone missing, Brianna was found dead in a ditch. That fall, after lengthy investigations, interrogations, and DNA samples, they finally found the man guilty of the crime, James Biella. And it came out that he had actually held her captive in his home for several days, harming and doing awful things to her body before he eventually killed her. And to top it off, he lived 1 block from FBI agents, 2 sheriffs, and a local police officer. So he was literally doing it all under their nose. Well, that's all I have for you today, friends.
That's a crazy video. It kind of ticked me off that a lot of these criminals have not been caught yet and all types of shit. Very annoying, but hey, justice will have his day one day, man. Crazy, crazy stories. Wow. I learned something new today about a lot of stuff. But yeah, man, you like the video, like the video. You feel me? It just only makes sense. Subscribe to the channel, man. Shout out to Most Amazing Top 10s. Definitely a great video. And yeah, until next time, this your boy Dale. I'm out. Peace.